Thinking about self-publishing and don't know where to start? Join the Spa Girls each week for an info-packed podcast filled with honest advice, tips and resources. I'm Trudy J.
I'm Shar Barrett.
I'm Cheryl Phipps.
And I'm Wendy Valor.
Yay, we're back
And I
again.
was too busy dancing.
We
Because
were
the word hustle
dancing.
brings back memories. Hands up, who remembers the hustle in the 70s?
Do the hustle.
I feel sorry for all the millennials around and the Gen Zers and the whatever, because those of us that were in Gen X, that we got the best of the music. Just
Better
saying.
tell them why we're talking about the
Seven,
hustle,
eight,
though, right?
Yeah, I think every
We need some
generation
context.
thinks that though. Every generation thinks, the generation that had Elvis, they thought they had the best, like it's every generation.
But they
Anyway,
were
the reason we're talking about the hustle that I don't remember any about this stuff, I'm just saying, is because this episode is all about the anti-hustle or anti-hustle. And this is what we wanted, like the idea that there's the idea of hustle out there, right? Like that you have to be fast and action packed and everything has to go really quick and you
do all the
publish
things all the time.
Be stressed, be if you're not busy, you're not doing it right, kind of thing.
You're not working
You're not putting
15
out
hours.
a book every 3 weeks. What are you even doing?
Like you're messing around, you're mucking around, like get back to work. And who needs sleep kind of hustle, right? Like it's the and
you don't want it enough. You don't want it enough because you're not killing yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And we've been doing this. We just had our 350th episode of the Spa Girls podcast last week. Hopefully this goes up. We can't do all that. And if it doesn't, we had it at some point. And that we've been around for a while now, right? Like, so we've seen people come and go. We've seen people, and for some people, putting that kind of pressure on themselves and doing that kind of work is okay and has worked for them. But for a lot of people, it doesn't. And long term, you just can't keep up that kind of high, frenetic, stress-filled, kind of frantic pace indefinitely. You just can't.
It's all about work-life balance, and I think that's the real key. And I think for a few of us lately, we've really been examining that. A few of us Spa Girls have been examining that work-life balance. And my husband would often say to me, you've been working 12 hours today, mate. That's not healthy. Yeah. And I'm saying, I've got to, and he said, you're your own boss. Why, why are you so hard on yourself? And that was a real reality check for me.
It's often our loved ones
people
that do it. Sorry, Cher.
I was going to say, you hear about people doing all those things and achieving great success with it, but we also hear about the cost to them. It's not even just a physical cost, which of course, if you're sitting in one position for hours and hours and hours, eventually it will be your hands and your back and whatever, but your mental state, you can't always be in that high flux of anxiety and fear of failure. I think fear of not achieving the goals that you've set out for yourself. And don't get me wrong, I think you should definitely have goals, but if they're so hard to reach, that every second counts, that you're not writing or you're not producing something towards the career, then you're a failure or something, something even worse than that. I don't know, but it's not true. It's just not true. You don't have to do it all, and you don't have to make yourself sick because of it.
That's it. I think it's the price, isn't it? It's the price that or the cost of that hustle attitude. And we're not, again, just to clarify, we're not saying writing fast is wrong, writing high input is wrong. We're not judging on any of that. It's more about the writer themselves and the pressure, as Wendy probably says, as Wendy did say, but for a lot of them, it's the pressure that people put on themselves, isn't it? It's often internally driven.
Nobody tells you have to do this. It's you, isn't it? You're
and
the
maybe
driver.
Taking a step back and kind of going, is this the best way for me to be working? And for some people, that high frenetic pace is okay, and maybe that's how they prefer to work, or maybe it's doing really like writing a book in 2 weeks or a month or whatever, and then not writing, and that kind of thing is, I mean, there's all sorts of different paces that people can do, but there's just, I think there's that myth out there that there's I remember someone saying to me, oh, the only way you can make money in self-publishing is by publishing a book a month, and that kind of thing, and that's not true, and we just need to sort of take a step back and kind of look at some of these belief systems that we have around all of this, and I don't know, reassess and make sure that it's working for us and not against us.
Yeah, and just, you know, like, and also becoming, you get so manic, you know, like I'm working and I'm like, I've got to get this done, I've got to get this done, I've got to get this done. And then if I actually stop and now I'll do that and go, what happens if I don't finish this today? I can finish it tomorrow. You know, unless I'm on a deadline, you know, that sort of, those sort of self-taught, talking to yourself and saying, it's okay, you know, like it's okay to step away. And that's tough. It's a tough realization to come to, but I think also finding something else to focus on other than your writing is a good thing. And that's where I went and bought an electronic keyboard. So I've always
who wants to hear her play?
We've had a vote, and the Spa Girls say,
you know, how easily swayed I am by you
guys. Could compose out. We could finally, after 350 plus episodes, have a jingle.
An intro. The intro.
Wendy.
Not going to
intro
happen.
by Wendy. I could have it as part of the.
No, I could plunk out happy birthday for you. No worries. But the point here is, you're just beside the point. Where I'm going with this is the piano. My husband took me out and he's like, we're getting you a keyboard, because that is something that is just fun for you. I am fiercely competitive. I'm not going to
so I'm not going to lie, is what she said.
So I do make myself leave my keyboard and go to that keyboard and just spend half an hour a day just sitting there playing, and it's totally different, and it just releases that tension, that stress, and I didn't have that. Okay, I go to the gym or I exercise and stuff, and that's great, don't get me wrong, but this is just mine. It's just like, it's just fun, it's just joy, it's just like wonderful. And I love music, so I'm hopeless, absolutely hopeless, but that's okay as well.
Very good for the brain, different grooves in the brain.
Good for the hands.
It's good for the hands. Stretch those handies out. So I'm going to have a small rant, which will surprise nobody.
Oh, really?
Actually, 2 rants. So the first one is, I think hustle often is put in the same sentence as productivity, and I think they should be 2 different things. Being productive doesn't mean you're necessarily over hustling, shall we say. Like, to me, I see productivity as doing things in the most efficient way that works for you best. Hustle to me is I'm really uncomfortable when I see it, you know, whether it's conferences or talks or people espousing that, particularly in self-publishing, that you have to hustle to, you know, hustle is a good thing, that you have to, so personally, I think it's toxic hustlity, or is it toxicity? Anyway, toxic hustlity. I'm trademarking that term now. And you know, it upsets me when I see people saying that is the one true way. And we've always said on here, there is no one true way, but that upsets me. And I think it comes from a place of, frankly, privilege as well, you know, that if you can, I mean, not all of us can be Steve Jobs, who wears the same outfit, eats the same clothes, and has a multitude
eats the same clothes
wears the same clothes or eats the same clothes. But you know, it's that kind of, I don't think that's something to actually try and attain. And you know, there's a lot of us that have got responsibilities, or chronic illnesses, or you know, actually, frankly, brains that just can't withstand that, you know. And I think to be told the message that if you can't do this, then you're not going to succeed, is a really toxic one. And so I want to kind of put our stake in the ground here and say that's absolutely not true. And in fact, some of the authors that we've had on and I'm thinking of like huge names, and she said it in the podcast, so I'm going to repeat it here now, and it was Bella Andre. Now, you could not, at one point, like, the woman is a machine, like, as in, I mean that with the highest of regard. She's a lovely, lovely lady. She was one of the kind of the early pioneers in the self-publishing space. You know, she was the one that questioned traditional publishing, very public about it, less so now. But she talked to us about how she burnt out and how, you know, her body just, you know, she had to just slow down and focus on her health, focus on, you know, whether it was yoga or stretching or whatever, also from a mental perspective as well. And we've had other authors that have said the same, you know, and it's, yeah, I just don't think, I think anybody that says there is the one way to do it and this is the way you've got to do it, take that with a grain of salt, just saying.
Yeah.
And sorry, I've got a third rant. My worst, one of the phrases that I really hate the most is everybody's got 24 hours in a day. You know, Beyonce has 24 hours in a day and look what she's achieved. Well, I'm sorry, but Beyonce has a giant bank account with a multitude of staff to do all her things. She's not worrying about, you know, cleaning the cat's spew up in the kitchen kind of thing.
But she didn't have that money to start with.
No, she didn't. But I don't think that 24 hours that everybody's got the same time is not, it's just not true. People don't have the same 24 hours in a day. You know, if I had no responsibilities, if I was in a tower and I would have so much more time, and also mental time. You know, it's the emotional labor as well that we all have, all of us, particularly women, can I just say, you know, that I just think we've got to cut ourselves some slack here and not compare ourselves. We've talked about this in other episodes as well. Don't compare yourself to other people, because you don't know what kind of help they've got at home or what other supports they've got or how many staff they've got on their publishing business as well. That's the other thing. So, you know, it's not comparing oranges with oranges. Let's just say that. That's my multi-rant for today.
Multi-rant.
Glad you got that off your chest, Sharon.
I'm feeling better now.
I think the thing I just want to say to that is that just like so we're saying no one journey up the mountain, and we kind of call this anti-hustle, but if you're someone who loves the hustle and deals with the hustle and that's how you prefer to work, then more power to you. I just think what we're saying is that there's this belief system that says hustle is the only way to get there, and that's kind of what we're trying to sort of push against. So
and I would also find writers that maybe if you've got a particular public production schedule, if you like, so maybe it's 1 or 2 books a year, then look to authors that are succeeding with that 1 or 2 books a year, to look to them for you know, not guidance, but, you know, sort of look at what they're doing and how they're approaching their business, as opposed to somebody perhaps that's looking on a you know, 3 weekly or 4 weekly publication schedule. It's a different strategy. So what I'm, you know, I think, look, you know, and we've had she's a Oz Kiwi, Helen Scheurer on, and she's publishing 1 or 2 books a year. I think it was 1 book a year, and doing really well. So there are those, you know, look for confirmation amongst the people who match your ideal publication schedule, I would say.
But it's possible to do it in multitude of different ways. So the other part of what we're going to talk about is kind of like how we carve new grooves in what we're doing, and you know, if you do find yourself in because I think the thing with hustle is there's a lot of fear behind it, don't you think? Like I have to hustle because I have to get this done, because if I don't, I'm not going to achieve what I want to achieve. And what we're saying is actually maybe there's a different way to kind of, so having a brain where it's just constantly on edge and worried and stressed and fearful is not actually the most creative place to be at. So perhaps there's other ways. And Wendy talked about her piano and how she started doing that, and that's about stopping and doing something different. And so for me, for example, I do karate, and that's my way.
What belt are you on, Trudy?
Oh yes, conveniently I just upgraded and I am now a red belt.
You the red belt, 2 off the black belt.
Yeah,
so cool.
Or 1 off the black belt.
brown and then black, but brown has a few levels and so does black. So there's always something new to learn.
Don't
Always
underplay it.
No, I'm
And
not.
you've done
But I'm just
exceptionally well.
It's a journey. Karate for me is a journey. And actually I think it was all of last year, I had this goal of like, I've got to get to red belt. And actually it just stressed me out. Like it stressed me out, it made it harder, and I stopped liking karate as much. And then this year I said, you know what? I just like going to karate. And so I changed my goal, and my goal became, I am going to go every week to karate without fail. And I'm going to practice karate at home at least once a week. And those were my two goals. And it wasn't about what belt I was going to get and what anything else. It was about just being consistent and being participatory, but being participating.
The P word.
Yeah, that word, you know what I mean? And that got me where I wanted to go, actually, more than stressing on the outcome and the red belt. And actually the more to the point, the reason I go to karate is I can be driving in from home to the karate place, and I'd be like, oh my god, I haven't done that thing, and oh shit, I have to do this, and oh sorry, I swore.
Oh, she swore.
And all of those kinds of, like, and they'd be like, oh, there's this thing, and oh, I've got to talk to my husband about this, and and then I'll go in karate and I'm just focused on my body, and I'm just focused on remembering which block I'm doing, or which punch, or fighting that person, or doing whatever, or getting the right stance. And then when I leave, I'm not thinking any of those other things. They've all kind of, all my anxiety, all my fear, all my worry has kind of dripped away from me, and I'm calm and I'm focused. And then I can go back and actually sort those things out, or go, actually, no, I don't even need to worry about that. That wasn't even a thing to worry about. It was just my brain being stressy because I was in a stressy mood. And that's where that's for me, that's karate. That's what it does for me. It's not about learning to fight people. It's about de-stressing and having a place that I can go that takes me away from being in my head, actually, and then just being in this body, and that's I think a big thing that we should all be thinking about. Yeah,
particularly we spend so much time in our heads, it can get very spirally in their head. What about you, Sheila? What do you do
Well, I was listening to Trudy, and I was thinking about how, for me, that kind of manifests itself in my writing with being in the zone, when you get into that state where the words just flow, and it's so joyous and it's so rewarding in lots and lots of ways. And that's how I feel about the other things that I do that aren't writing. For me, that's like the key to unlocking all your, your pent up anxieties, or when you get anxious about things and you worry about things, and maybe you have to worry about certain things like family and that, but like when I'm with my grandchildren, and the joy that it brings me is just like that, nothing's too hard, even kids bickering or whatever, it's just a joyous time. But I also have that with my baking. And one of the things that I like to do is challenge myself with making something that I've never made before, just because I've heard of it, or somebody's given me a recipe and I thought, oh, one day I must try that. And to find that one day and then actually do it and make it, and it's good. And even if it's not perfect, but I know what I could do to make it better. That's a zone for me. That's I guess you're getting endorphins, aren't you? You're getting that sort of that release of like, this is what I was made for. This is who I am. And I think I just think there's nothing better. And I think to find it in your writing is key, is amazing. But to find it somewhere else in your life as well is just as important. And I think that they coexist, and they I
think
you can take it back to your writing.
You need to step away from your writing though as well, right? Like you step away from your writing, you get that you're kind of recharging or finding something elsewhere, and then you can step back into your writing and bring, like you say, Wendy, bring it back in, but also just go back to the writing with more creativity, more more brain space than
and problems solve themselves quite often, things that you've been chewing over for ages, that blurb's not working, or that's not, and then you go away, do something, and you come back and you go, oh, well, there you go,
because you've expressed your creativity somewhere else. And I guess you'd have that too with your gardening show.
I do, and I think it's I mean, on many levels, it serves me. It's not just a hobby. It's kind of part of who I am now, and it's absolutely necessary to my mental and my physical health, but particularly my mental health. And I think what it's taught me is, because I spend a huge amount of time in my head, as most of us do, and I think it's literally so good to put your hands in the earth, and it's really important for all of us. But it also, it's that, I can do everything right. I can do everything the same as I did a previous season, but nature being nature, I'm a huge dahlia grower, and this particular season that's just passed for us, because when recording this, we're in winter now, it was an absolute flop, and I did everything right, but the environment around that rightness meant that, I lost 3/4 of my tubers through rot, blah, blah, blah. And it was out of my control. And that's really good for me. It's a good lesson, I think, to learn that you can do everything right. And sometimes things and the timing and the environment, it's not in your control. And you've just got to go, and you've just got to try again the next year. Look back on what you've done the previous years and look at the pretty photos and think, yep, I can do it. And it's kind of a life lesson for me in that respect. But also I try and do gardening around the lunar cycle, around the moon as well. So there's times, when things are growing, waxing and waning, etc. And the older I get, the more I recognize within myself that I think we operate the same. And I think there's times in life that to try and push something when we were in a more of a quieter phase, if you like, whether it's a few days or whatever, is just pushing that cart uphill. It's making life really difficult for yourself. But if you go into that and think, okay, this time it's more of a reflective time, or I'm going to do journaling, or I'm going to, whatever, and not force it, it will come easier a few days down the track or whatever. And that absolutely is the same. And it's the same for gardening, and it's the same for people. And I think, obviously getting out in nature, fresh air, that's super vital as well. Because we're all basically, those of us working sedentary jobs these days, we're not moving enough, we're not getting out of our chairs enough. And both Cheryl and I have had back issues over the years, and it's when you've been there, it's not a place you want to go back to again. So you try and get up and do the stretchy thing again. But I think it's honoring cycles and just recognizing that sometimes things happen. They don't always go the way you want them to, and often it's for the best as well. And I think letting go, that's a huge thing for me to learn as well. A life lesson is, work, but then let go of the results. That's I think takes the pressure off, and it also goes against that hustle thing, because to me a lot of the hustle qualities is about control and or about wanting to have control. And I mean, sometimes we don't have control, often
no. And I think if you are a hustler, like I'm a hustler, I like to hustle everything through, like if I've got something to do, then I don't want to stop and do something else. I want that to be completed. Like if I've got a list of things that I need to do, then I need to do them mentally. But that's something that I think that's a real learning thing for me, is like mentally, is can I finish this, and can it be the best that it can be if I'm at that stage where I'm tired, and and so that those are, as you get older, I think as you mature as a writer, or just as you get more experience, it's acknowledging that and looking at it and going, okay, well, what you're writing there is a big pile of crap. Walk away, take 30, take 10, go to the gym, play the piano, and then come back to it, and it will look better. And that's another thing too for me.
I distinctly remember when Christopher Vogler came out to New Zealand, and we went to a conference with him, and he talked about the power of water around, like being near water or in the shower, around creativity and like the negative ions and ideas and results, and solutions to problems will very often come when you're actually away from that keyboard and you're either, for me, it's usually something really exciting, like washing the dishes or doing the, doing the laundry, or just walking by the beach or walking. It's Trudy, you're muted there, babe.
Sorry, in the shower is a big one.
Shower, yeah. But how often you can sit there, and you can sit there for, like I've done this, I can sit there for an hour trying to literally squeeze my brain to try and figure out something, and then kind of give up and go away and do something else, and suddenly the answer just comes when you step away. It's really frustrating.
So is it so there's the hustle, but maybe getting stuff done hustle, not panicked, have to do this thing, burn out, do it all kind of hustle.
And you will have those panic days though, right? You know, like that's just it. But know thyself is, I think, a huge thing, you know, like know your triggers, what works for you, what doesn't work for you, what, you know, and there are some people out there who probably listen to this go, well, that doesn't work for me. I like to hustle, and that's the way and that's all good too, you know. Like I have days, still do 12-hour days when I need to.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
And we've all got our own definition of what hustle is, you know, and I'm so that's okay too. But I kind of liken it to just having your foot on the accelerator hard the whole time to me.
Yeah, I think,
and more the brain mental accelerator as much as anything.
And I think that's when we say we're anti-hustle, that's what we're talking about, like that pedal to the middle, long-term, constant, detrimental hustle that's not gonna, that's just gonna end up with you feeling like crap and actually not necessarily achieve what you're trying to achieve, because you do need to take that time out, and you do need to take that time away to be more creative and be more productive in your business, right? Like that's
as compared to a day of hard work.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I think planning comes into it a lot too.
What?
No, not for me. I'm just talking on behalf of you
other
guys.
Other
people's planning comes into it. No. I mean, I may not plot, but I plan. That's the difference. There's two different issues there. Thank you. So what I mean by planning is like sitting down and going, okay, well, today I've got to write this many words. I've got to write. Like yesterday, I had a really big day, and I had to do certain things and get them done, and they had to be done. So, I mean, that sort of plan in my head before I started, I knew that I had a big day ahead of me. But it's making yourself have a day like that every day is not productive.
No.
You know?
No, not for the sake of it.
I mean, I know I'm being pedantic here, but do you think hustle, like in my mind, the hustle word is kind of more about not just the everyday productivity that you want to do, but these kind of like the it's almost like the extra, what are you trying to say the more I don't know, there's just something about hustle that doesn't just,
well, it sounds frantic to me.
It's frantic. It's kind of doing lots of different things. It's kind of almost, and it feels from a panic in my mind, and it feels like it's coming from a panic place. And that's not someone who has a 12-hour day, who gets stuff done and has a list and then gets everything done on the list. That's in my mind, that's not hustle. That's being productive. And there's in my mind, the hustle thing is just that it's that you're just trying to do all this extra, almost like lots of different things, and like throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks kind of a situation, rather than kind of taking a step back and going, okay, let's do this one at a time, or whatever, or let's test this, or I don't know. So I think that's the hustle perspective that I'm coming at this with, and maybe I just think that there's better ways to do it than that.
And I also think, like, to be fair to those of us, and we've all done this, we've all got caught into the holy cow deadline, but also imposed deadlines. For example, there was the whole your book's fall off the cliff, or the 30-day cliff for Amazon, for example, that kind of thing. And I can totally see how that triggers someone to, like, okay, well, I've got to get every 29 days I'm going to publish, kind of thing. And goodness knows it works for a lot of people, right? So we're not saying it doesn't work for in terms of sales, but I can see that supposed conventional wisdom, or that I don't even want to say myth, because I think it's probably real, but it's that you get the beating the algorithms, let's put it that way. You're trying to stay ahead of that, and to make it work for you in terms of your production schedule. I can totally see how that would trigger to me it feels like anxiety, but it would trigger your production or your desire to publish so fast, or to on a particular schedule. I'm not judging people that do that at all. I just want to be clear that we're not here in judgment. We're just saying, look after yourselves, really.
Looking at yourself and saying, is that how I want to work? Is that how I want to live? And can I do it? Can I sustain it? It's, you know, like maybe it's something that you could do for, you know, like a short window.
Say that, and we've had authors on that have just, that's exactly what they've said. They, you know, or whether by their own physical, after a while, the toll that it takes on them physically, on their hands or their wrists or whatever, that they've had to sort of pivot slightly. Or they've just gone, you know, I mean, goodness knows, if you're, you know, doing really well and making a ton in KU, for example, and you're just wanting to you know, make hay while the sun shines, I can totally get that as well. I just would question whether it's sustainable long term, and it's actually healthy for you. But I'm not judging anybody for doing that at all. But I am judging people that say that's the only way to do it. How's that?
Let's go with that. Yeah. So have we got anything else to say about the topic of hustle? What else?
I would just go back, we'll put a few links in our show notes, but I would just go back and listen to particularly the podcast by Helen and Bella. I think those are two, they just immediately, when we're talking about the subject, really sprung to mind on there. And both incredibly successful authors, and just how they've sort of approached it, and it feels almost like I think what Wendy said about is the difference between planning and there's a difference between hustle, and it's a good place to be.
Alrighty,
cut yourself a break.
Cut yourself a break. I just think for me it's like if you're constantly hustling, then it just I don't know, maybe for me it's like
takes the love away from it too.
Joy.
You're your own boss, and this, if you're writing what you love, it would be awful if you were just writing for the sake of it and not because you loved it. We've all done that. We all have to do that at certain times. Don't get me wrong, we do. It's like, oh my gosh, I have to reread this again. Or it's 13th draft. It's the biggest pile of poo alive, and rah rah rah. But there has to be an element of excitement and love and joy still in it to do it.
I think so.
Do it happily, I think.
I mean, you could do it, you could just be hating it, and it's like at the end of the day we want to love what we're doing, don't we? Like as writers, are we? It's kind of the point. Right, like it's not why you're not in an office, working in an office somewhere, because you'd rather do this. You'd rather be writing. Wouldn't we all?
It would be a very hard industry and a hard career to have if you didn't love at least some aspects of it, I think, because
Shah's gone.
Yeah, she's gone.
Okay.
So are we all? What's our last words of wisdom on this?
On hustle.
Chair.
I think, just do you. You know, just find out what you can do that makes you happy while you're doing it.
Yeah. What about you, Trudeau?
My big thing is hustle is not something you can do constantly 24/7 all the days of the year for the next 10 years of whatever, you know, like hustle is maybe something you do short term for a certain section and maybe, you know, section of your career, and then you sort of stop it and look to what else you can do. And I think if you are hustling, then you want to take time away and have other places that you can go to and other outlets that you could, you know, like the piano and the baking and karate or whatever, like those are just whatever is meaningful to you and is going to be good to you, and refill that well of creativity inside you so that you can go back to your writing and love it and not feel that you have to be hustling all the time.
No, that's good.
What about
I don't think there's anything to add to that, really.
Shah,
no, she's gone missing.
She's gone. No, we can't hear her. We've lost Shah's wisdom.
For the rest of
so Wendy, sorry, what were you going to say?
No, I was what you said. I think, you know yourself, know what works for you. Don't work just for the sake of working. If it's, you know, it's like trying to force a square peg into a round hole. It doesn't work sometimes. So back off, do something else, and then come back, even if it's 10-15 minutes of moving your brain away from the chore, from what has become a chore, and then back to it. You'll find a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So I think that might be us for this episode of the Spa Girls podcast.
Yep.
So where can we be found, Cheryl?
We can be found at spagirlspodcast.com on all of the platforms. And please come and join us on Patreon if you'd like to give a little something back. We could sure do with a coffee these days. And that's, I don't know all the slashes for that, but it's Patreon and Spa Girls, and somewhere in there you will find us.
Awesome. Thank you, Cheryl. And thank you all for listening to another episode of the Spa Girls podcast. We'll be back again next week with another exciting episode. But for now, goodbye.
Keep well. Bye.
Bye.